Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October 29th, 2019. Round of the board days, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, we're all hydrated down here and relaxed and getting ready for Game 6 of the World Series in Houston tonight.
Well, I wonder if the Nationals are ready. They look like they took the last 3 games off, but it's all fair, love, and war. Got a lot of good things happening. A very tiny NBA schedule. Only 3 games going on tonight in the sports universe. But football is always making noise throughout the week, and we love that too. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. So I know when you think about everything that's happening tonight, and I know we talk about people wanting to watch games and needing help too. I want to say just download the app, Big C Sports Podcast. Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. And if you can follow us on television, Xfinity, Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, Amazon TV, and other smart TVs all over the universe. But Big C, we do have this hotline for people who are having whatever issue they're having. And we know people go through issues. They just don't tell a lot of people. There's a National Suicide Hotline for veterans, but also civilians. 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, our veterans have served such a great honor in this country. It's like we had one today testify on Capitol Hill, a lieutenant colonel that, the Fox News wanted to say that he was a traitor, a double agent.
Wow.
Representing another country. But these are the things that our veterans go through, Charlton, after they serve this country admirably. This man's a Purple Heart winner. He's a decorated war hero, Charlton. He's a lifelong military person.
Yeah.
We've had many lifelong military people, Charlton, that our country has turned their back on. And there's evidence today from news outlets and last night that even the news outlets are turning their backs on military veterans. All of them are not in the situation that he is in, a promise and have a great secure job, Charlton, within the National Security Department.
Yeah.
But to be out there to help these people out, to have a voice that they can listen to, there's non-judgmental, as we have so many veterans that are judged because people don't care about them. They never sacrifice like these veterans have sacrificed, never seen what these veterans will have seen during their active duty, Charlton. This National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there because we have so many people in this country that turn their backs on our veterans and ridicule them. These people behind this hotline number, Charlton, do not ridicule. They're a shoulder to lean on, a voice to listen to you. That's what they're there for, to help get you through troubled times.
Well, that's so true. We're coming up on a Halloween, and there are people who put more emphasis on Halloween and how to dress up like ghosts and goblins than to make sure that people going through, tough times get help. I love giving out that number, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or they can text 838-255. That's 838-255, and all they got to do is make the first effort, and they can get some help. Big C, I want to get into the world of some sports tonight, and this could be, sometimes you don't appreciate something until it's over. Baseball season's going to be over in either 1 or 2 more games. And then we got to get into April and the spring training, etc. But the World Series is tonight. It's down in Texas. And why the Astros and the Nationals in a Game 6, pitching could be one for the ages to remember. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as we go into this great game tonight, Game 6 of the World Series, both teams have lost all their home games, Charlton. So all 5 games have been won by the Road Warriors in this series, as Houston went into Washington and swept that 3-game series while they had there, Charlton. And this is what the World Series is all about, having epic events.
Yeah.
We have two outstanding pitchers tonight in Game 6 of the World Series in Houston. You're having Justin Verlander, who ironically, when people think about it, he is 0-5 in World Series pitching.
Wow.
Versus Steven Strasburg, who is 4-0 his playoff debut, Charlton, with the Washington Nationals this year. He was shut down in 2015.
Yeah.
But as we look at these two great combatants, Charlton, that are going to have an opportunity, either one to extend the series for his team or one to host his second World Series title, Charlton, in 3 years for his team.
Yeah, that's amazing when you think about lineups and who can hit the ball further and what pitcher's better against a right-hand batter and vice versa. You talked about Justin Verlander, who many people will say it's a first ballot Hall of Fame for him, Big C. But the fourth highest ERA in World Series history is 5.73. What makes him come back down to earth when he's a 20-game per season winner? It seems he can do that with his eyes closed. But it's when the stage is the biggest that he comes back down to earth again, Big C. Why is that? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if he comes back down to earth, Charlton. He has to get through the first couple of innings of any game, which is where he's had rocky starts.
Yeah.
When you think about him getting past the second inning, Charlton, of any game that he's pitched, his ERA is down at 1.38.
Yeah.
He's just struggled in the first couple of innings. He hasn't gotten much help from his infielders out there, Charlton.
Right.
Not only that, the strike zone has been quite egregious when he has been on the mound. We haven't seen much consistency during this playoff series from the umpires. I mean, everybody's critical of everything.
Right.
But we're talking about the biggest stage in sport where human error has become a factor on all 5 games, Charlton. And we've seen that through replays. And the Major League Baseball is somehow going to have to help get it right. Rob Manfred has been great throughout his replay system throughout the regular season, Charlton, where it's a limited amount of time that you have where you can review a play. But I think more replay needs to be called upon in the World Series. Give the managers a couple of extra challenges, Charlton, because when you keep an inning alive, when you think you have that third out,
right,
that demoralizes the team mentally.
Yeah, I've seen with my own 2 eyes, Big C, what looked like a strike because it was in that box that they CGI put on the TV, Big C, and they still call the ball at times. But it's all fair and love and war. I keep believing the prop bet only works when there's cheating. It doesn't work if everything's honest, Big C. Steven Strasburg, think about him. 5th lowest career postseason ERA, 1.34. This good old boy has all the mechanics that you want in a pitcher. But a lot of them, I guess, if you look at Verlander and Strasburg, if you're going to get him, you do got to get him early. And I wonder, will either one of these guys, if they are pitching strong into the 7th inning, will they be pulled to go with the analytics, or will they stay with the guy that's got them that far, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Strasburg's, Charlton, he has been able to get through the 7th inning in the games that he has pitched. You think about that 1.34 ERA that he has, the 5th lowest all time in playoff history. But not only that, Charlton, he has the 2nd lowest ERA all time behind the great Sandy Koufax in World Series history. So Steven Strasburg has been a workhorse in this Washington National lineup, Charlton. He's undefeated in the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
And that's what you hang your hat on. You know you don't have anyone in the bullpen that can equal what he does when he's on the mound. So you stay with him until the wheels fall off. This is Game 6. This is technically for all the marbles. You cannot afford to lose this game because there's no tomorrow if you're the Washington Nationals.
Yeah, there's no tomorrow if you're the Washington Nationals. But for baseball, it would be anathema for baseball's ratings because we're in the heart of football. We're in the, NBA is just tipping off. And then, of course, college football in the heart of deciding who's going to get chosen for the Final Four. So baseball would benefit greatly if Strasburg would lose his first postseason game tonight after his 4 starts he won those, Big C. It would be great for baseball because the ratings would be through the roof in a Game 6, especially all over the world. And then it doesn't make sense if it ended tonight. So in the road team, for some reason, they keep winning. That could happen where they stop the road team from winning tonight, and Verlander, goes on and wins, and Strasburg loses the first time, and there's no Game 7. We need Game 7, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that the Houston Astros are wanting a Game 7, but when you look at this game, either way, Charlton, history will be in the making. Either Strasburg will have his 6th consecutive win in the postseason, or Verlander will get his first ever World Series victory. So either way you look at that, that's epic. That's must-see television from the sports aficionado. So I expect, high numbers as far as TV ratings tonight, Charlton, because this is an epic game that everyone wants to be a part of to see history in the making. So you don't need to get to a Game 7 in the World Series. And a lot of people talk about, you want to see Game 7s of a series.
Yep.
There's not a winning team that wins a championship, Charlton, in a series that wants to see Game 7. They want to get it over in 4, 5, or 6. They don't want to see Game 7.
Well, I'm sure the Nationals want to see Game 7 tonight. But the question is, does POTUS want to see Game 7? Because if a pitcher gets, hit pretty hard and when he's out there on the mound, the crowd might boo. So he's always looking for that recap, the second time that he can come out a couple of games later. Would POTUS have the gusto to show up down in Texas if there is a Game 7? Because maybe he won't get booed when he's not in his homeland. Pixie, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think any sporting arena that he goes to, that he's not vetting the crowd outside, that he doesn't have any anti-Trumpers in the crowd, and they always have security remove those people from any speaking event that he's at.
Yeah.
He is not going to go to another live sporting event, Charlton, even if he survives his presidency. You will never see his face at another live sporting event again, because he was exposed to the public, showing that you're not appreciated by the American general public.
Yeah, it's all fair and level, Warrior. I heard somebody saying, I don't know, somebody from Hollywood was talking about equality and how to get along with people. Anyone in any relationship, there are moments when you just disagree, whether a politician or a parent or a spouse or a sibling. So it's all fair and love and war. I do hope that we can see a Game 7. I think it would be great for the game of baseball. And just because it's the final countdown for the end of the baseball season. We've had 2 great performances from the National League and the American League, and it'd be great to see a Game 7, but who knows what that happened, and we'll find out. The game is already underway. But, Big C, I can go to something that gives a lot more teams opportunity to get into the finals as we jump to the world of college football. College football playoffs. Now, everybody says, back in the day, I remember they had the AP poll and the coaches poll, and then they would decide on who was number 1 or 2. I think Washington, back in 91 or 92, they were ranked number 1 by one of the polls. And then the University of Miami Hurricanes, they were ranked number 1 by the other. So they had a split national championship. That would not happen today. They would play their way in. Do you like that old system where people can still argue, or this new system where people still get left out because they only choose 4 teams? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's nothing wrong with choosing 4 teams, but you give 4 teams an opportunity to settle it on the field. When you're sitting there and you're just letting polls decide who is the national championship, it becomes a popularity contest, not about the best team always winning.
Yeah.
And that's what sports is all about, having the best team win it on the field. To be a pseudo-national championship, yes, I mean, you have the title, but there's always an asterisk next to you.
So I want to get you, because I want to talk about some party crashers. There's 7 teams that could really invade that exclusive field of 7. But I know back in the day, they had what was called Division I AA. And I think it was started by Chris Ault out of University of Nevada when they had that playoff system. I think they had 12 teams, or I think they started with 4 teams and expanded to 12. I think we have 12 now. And they play their way in. And I thought that was always the best way to do it. And I don't know how we try to make it perfect when we only choose 4 teams. So I want to get your thoughts. Do you like the way it started under Chris Ault, I think back in the late 70s, or the way they started right now with just choosing 4? Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when the 1AA playoff system started, I believe that was 1978 when it started. It started with just 4 teams.
Yeah.
But you also got to look at the college football season back in 1978 was only 11 games long. Now we have conference playoffs. They didn't have conference playoffs on any level of college football in 1978. You played your 11 regular season games. If you're fortunate enough to get into a bowl game, that would have been your 12th game of the season.
Yeah.
Now the college football season has been extended in many places to 13 games.
Yeah.
So that's in essence 2 playoff games that you have an opportunity to better your positioning. So to extend it beyond that, and then when you get a conference championship game, Charlton, you could have at that point played 14 games depending on the conference that you're in.
Yep.
So now you have 2 playoff games added to it. You've played a full NFL schedule to get through 2 rounds of the playoffs. So adding more games to that I think is not a good situation for the college athletes unless you're going to reduce the regular season back down to 11 games, which I don't think any university is willing to do that because of the financial impact that it would have on them at the gate as well as television revenue. So expanding the current college playoff format as it is now to beyond 4 teams, I think it would be unwise and unhealthy for the players because you put in this extra wear and tear. If you add 4 more teams, how long do you take this playoff system? If you add 4, then it's going to be a cry for 12. Expansion doesn't stop when you talk about expanding a position. So now you could be forcing college players to participate in 18 games just to clarify a champion.
Yep, that's a very good point. There's always fatigue with the body, and of course they're doing it for free for now anyway. So I want to get to no more Associated Press in the coaches poll and who chooses whom. And coaches, they're going to get their conference teams up high if possible, Big C. The SEC has been accused of that lately and over the last decade or so. And then if you have the media, they're going to go with the guys they like that give them good interviews. So I like when they have it on the field, and there's never a perfect system. But
if you look at the SEC compared to the rest of the country, Dalton, what other conference has multiple stadiums that seat over 100,000 people and pack them? I mean, you can take one SEC game and put 2 to 3, sometimes 4 Pac-12 games in that stadium as far as participation from fans.
Yeah, and when you look at the Big Ten and the SEC, they're the ones packing in the stands. Texas is doing it also, but that's also how many people are going to come to your game. That's always a consideration. So I want to look at college football playoff party crashers. Notre Dame is out of it. And, they're just out of it. Doesn't matter what happens the rest of the season. But 7 teams. But I want to start with your thoughts on 7 teams that can get in. And we talked about that before, the AP and the coaches poll. They just chose a team. And then, like Chris Alt started, the 1AA playoff 78-79 season, they started with 4. And so no matter what happens now, there's still going to be 4. Any thought of who a party crasher would be in your mind so far? And then I want to get into some of the top teams, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, we've had traditional teams that have always been in the playoff. Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame has made an appearance. Ohio State has been in there. So we've had the Power 5 conferences, mainly 3. Right now, LSU has never been into this playoff position, Charlton. But right now, they're the number 1 ranked team in the country. And basically, I think they're a shoe-in to be this year's party crasher of a non-traditional team that has gotten in.
Well, they're definitely a dominant team, 8-0 in the season. They deserve to be number 1 based on what they've done. They're the only program to beat 3 top 10 teams at the time of kickoff. We know Texas has fallen over a little bit off the horse, off the saddle. Florida, they're still strong. And then Auburn. But it's just like you mentioned earlier. And, of course, they have no control over, who they're in the conference with. If they were playing lesser teams, they would still be undefeated. But because there's so many teams that are heavy loaded at the top of the SEC, these programs are going to knock each other off. So that's why Auburn and Florida probably win most conferences around the country, or at least play in that championship game. But they're knocked out because of their conference. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at having a powerful conference, Charlton, and you have to play guys that are on the slate. LSU did that perfectly when you talked about them opening up the season against Texas. They were a ranked team. They went on and beat Florida, another top 10 team at the time, Charlton, and they just handled Auburn this past weekend. So when you look at the power of the schedule that they've put together, and then other teams want to whine, why aren't they in?
Right.
You have to play a powerful schedule to be considered a top-ranked team in the country. You can't always go out there and beat up on 1AA teams and say, okay, we're undefeated and we deserve to be there.
Right. Well, that's very true. So I want to bring you to Big Ten country. Penn State, they're 8-0 for now. The Nittany Lions are the surprise team of the Big Ten East. Michigan, prohibited preseason favorite. And then Ohio State's always that traditional power. So Penn State, I think the last big game they had was when they went out to the Rose Bowl and lost to Sam Darnold and the USC Trojans a couple of years ago. But they're 8-0 right now. They control their own destiny, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's mighty how those two programs have gone opposite direction. You look at Penn State, they're 8-0. And
that's right.
I think USC is about 5-3 on the season, Charlton. So Penn State, I mean, they're in the driver's seat of their own destiny this year. Their next big challenge on the slate should be Ohio State, Charlton. If they run the table, there's no way you keep them out of the big dance.
Well, speaking of dancing, And I know that people don't care. As you get closer to the end of the season, it's like musical chairs. There's not enough chairs for everybody to get into the dance. So Florida, they're 7-1. Now look at Saturday's game against Georgia. It's really a playoff game, elimination game, Big C. There are no guarantees, the college football playoff berth. But when you think about what team could afford a loss if they run the table, you have Florida that lost a tough game. And obviously, they lost it after knocking off Auburn. They lost it on the road at LSU. But then Georgia lost at home to South Carolina. So the team, in my opinion, that could afford a loss and win out and get in, it would be Florida more so than Georgia. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the winner of this game, Charlton, has a direct path to the SEC championship game that will be held in Atlanta later in December. So this win is very crucial for either one of these teams, Charlton, because you go in and you win the SEC championship. We've seen every year that the playoffs have been, the SEC champion is guaranteed a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, they get guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, and that's because a lot of the programs, they have been top-heavy, but they've earned it by winning. I want to come out to the West Coast, Big C. When you fly out to the West Coast, you probably fly an airplane, but these guys fly the Ducks, the Oregon Ducks. They are 7-1. Yes, we know the Ducks wouldn't be party crashers because think about this. They were the first college football team in this new playoff system 5 years ago, and they blew out Florida State down in the Rose Bowl, and then they ended up losing to Ohio State. I think it was 41-20, but the score at one time was 21-20. But you think about it, it's been a long time the Pac-12 has fallen off, and they're trying to exert some type of executive privilege. But I will say this too. When Oregon lost the opening game to Auburn, it was a road game for both teams, but for the most part, really for Oregon. And they were missing some of their star receivers too, not making excuses because people don't care, but take 4 top receivers off of any team and expect them to compete. I want to get your thoughts on the Ducks flying high, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, the Ducks are, in control of their own destiny. But as you said, that loss against Auburn, the committee would look at that and take it into consideration because this shows that a team doesn't perform well on the road, and everybody in this playoff system are road teams, Charlton. And if they don't stack up well in those scenarios, the bowl selection, the playoff selection committee always considers that.
Yeah, they consider everything. Another team that, and you mentioned the stadium thing, and for people who think it doesn't matter, I think Eccles Stadium up in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, the Utah Utes, it holds about 47,000. I've even heard as low as like 45,000. So they're 9-1 on the season. If the Utes get far enough in the playoff discussion, they'll lose to USC at the Coliseum in Week 4. It will weigh them down. But also, when you're the bowl committee and you could choose, let's just say for money, you're going to have a team out of the SEC with a one loss, just projecting, and they hold 90,000 to 100,000 fans. And you say, okay, who do we want to get in? The team, say if it's a Florida, they got 90,000 fans down there in the swamp. Or if it's a Georgia, they hold 90-plus thousand fans down in the swamp. And then you look at Utah, that holds between 45 and 47,000. You're going to get half the population of a stadium, and they don't travel as well when they can sell out at home at 45,000. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at both of those Pac-12 teams, you look at Utah and you look at Oregon.
Yeah.
Both of those teams will have losses on their schedule, and the teams that they lost to, Charlton, will not be in the top 10 in the country. Those are huge criteria to get into the playoff system, is that your losses are technically quality losses. Auburn will lose again. They will have 3 losses at the end of the season. So how good is that loss now to Auburn that Oregon has faced? And then, as you said, with Utah, they lost to USC, who already has 3 losses.
Yeah, that's a very good consideration, Big C. So when I look at another team that's flying under everybody's radar, that's the Baylor Bears. They're 7-1 on the season. There really are, I know SMU has their own thoughts about this, but Baylor really is playing the best football in the state of Texas right now. They're 7-1. Matt Rule, he's performing his second consecutive miracle turnaround. It's taken Rule 3 years in Waco, Texas, going from 1-11. Big C, that was 2017. Now they're 7-1, and they have everything on the line. They got to win the Big 12 championship, and Oklahoma opened the door by dropping a game at Kansas. Big C, your thoughts?
They
Kansas
have
State.
to win out, Charlton, and they still have that showdown against Oklahoma for the Big 12 title.
Yeah.
That's going to be an epic battle, Charlton. The winner of that game has an outside chance of getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, and so the Kansas State, they'll be getting some thank you notes from Baylor if it goes that far. I want to go to one more team up north, and I'm hesitant to do it because I know they're not even liked in their own conference. But if you win, you earn the chance to go because they play to win the game. Now, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, Big C, I know they're not sexy. They're not Ohio State. They're not Michigan State, Iowa, Penn State, Wisconsin. They're not them. They don't carry that same cachet. But they're 8-0, and they have the ultimate college football hype man in P.J. Fleck. Minnesota's off to its best start since 1941, Big C. It's unlikely that they're going to run the table because their back-to-back schedule is loaded. Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. That's not even talking about teams that could come out of that conference. That's Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin's gone now. But Penn State's still out there too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about Minnesota last won the national championship in 1962. And ironically, they had the first African-American quarterback in the country to win a national championship at that time.
Wow.
But you just talked about what's left on Minnesota's schedule. If they run the tables and win the Big Ten title, Charleston, they're going to be automatically hoisted into the college football playoff. Because if you look at that gauntlet of teams that they have left over, Charlton, they can't say that they played a cupcake schedule.
That'd be very true. And they have that new stadium up there that was played in by the Vikings for a couple of seasons while they built their new stadium. It's just impressive when teams can go this far, and they're under the radar, and they're still undefeated. So I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do no matter win or lose. I want to get into something also before we get into the Big C timeout, Big C. The NFLPA and the National Players Association, which is called the NCPA, they announced jointly on Monday that a partnership that will explore opportunities for college athletes in merchandising. Now, the part that's already going on, gaming, good old boys that bet, the licensed products, and how recent the development will impact television broadcast revenues in pursuit of fairness. Now, so many guys have gotten programs on probation because they took money. And now the NCAA is opening their eyes, and they really are trying to do the right thing by saying, how can people make money on their likeness? There will always be shenanigans no matter what happens. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, ironically, today, Charlton, the NCAA passed a rule that players will be able to make money off of their likeness. All NCAA student athletes will now be able to make money off their likeness. And really, this is a backhanded rule by the NCAA. The NCAA was trying to get out in front
of
what the states were legislating.
Yeah.
And the NCAA is hoping by making this move today that state legislators and even the national government won't allow these student athletes to dip into the school's revenue as far as television and advertising income or even gate revenue that they make. So the NCAA is trying to backdoor this ruling today by giving student athletes the opportunity to make money off of their likeness. But you got to ask, how will the second and third team players, Charlton, make money off their likeness? How will an offensive guard that no one recognizes make money off of his likeness? We don't see much of college baseball on television until we get to the playoffs and college baseball World Series. Even college hockey, Charlton. There are so many players, men and women out there, Charlton, that don't get exposed through television. And the NCAA made a backhanded move today to block that by saying they're going to explore and allow players to make money off of their likeness. I think what players need to do, there's so many games out there like EA Sports and all of that produce college football, basketball, hockey games, baseball games on these video things. And all of these teams have to use a likeness that EA Sports use. Maybe the players can pump into EA Sports and make money off of that, Charlton, because they have to use the players' likeness and numbers.
Wow, I remember playing those games as a young kid in college, coming out of college, and they were always having, players' uniforms, but never a mention of the player in the game. It's just that uniform. It's nice. Everything happens with discussion. You got to ask the question, and then the lawyers get involved, and everybody will do their own thing. But that's always part of what it takes to make things happen. We're going to come up on what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. We're going to come right back and talk about some more things going on in the sports universe, and we hope that you'll come back and join us as well. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and you can follow Big C Sports. Just download the app on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, the apps that I really love. And tell a friend about it. Say, ask Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Fire TVs, and other smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Big C still talking about college and letting good old boys get paid. You talk about for their likeness. Well, in order to get paid in that scenario, you got to be producing some numbers. College football, individual stat leaders, passing yards. This guy almost knocked Oregon out of the bowl consideration by himself. Anthony Gordon, Washington State under Coach Mike Leach, 3,387 passing yards, and that good old boy came by way of a junior college. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about he almost knocked Oregon out of the playoff hunt, Charlton, and that's going to be one of the things that, may haunt Oregon also, playing so many close games that they, didn't blow out and dominate opponents. Anthony Gordon, this has become traditional with Mike Leach with Washington State. He's had to pass 3 NCAA passing yardage leaders, Charlton, in 3 consecutive seasons.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good coach, Big C. He takes guys from junior college and says if he could play, he could play. I think that's a big note for a lot of guys going the JC route. Also, you got to throw the ball. Someone has to catch it. Receiving yards, Omar Bayless, Arkansas State, Big C. He has 1,070 receiving yards. Nobody knows his name because it's not a Power 5 school, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the state of Arkansas, the University of Arkansas is not doing anything, Charlton, but Arkansas State has the best wide receiver in the country, and Omar Bayless. And so there's some Cheos going to the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, they're playing to win the game, and even if they're smaller programs, you find your best jewels when sometimes it's not so crowded at the top. On the rushing, you got to have a good quarterback, but in order to be a good passer, you got to have the defense stay honest. You need a good running back. They have it down at Oklahoma State, Chuba Hubbard. That good old boy, 1,381 yards, and he's still running downhill. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everybody's thinking of the big-time program starving. Chuba Hubbard is running for 2 countries. He's running for Canada, and he's running from the U.S. The junior running back out of Edmonton, Canada, Charlton, has done an outstanding job of running the Big 12 for the past 2 years.
Yeah, that good old boy is doing it. Now, we talked about also, when you got a guy who can throw the rock, you need someone to get into the end zone. Having a lot of yards and not a lot of scores is not good. This good old boy, Anthony Gordon again, Washington State, has 32 touchdown passes on the season in a conference where they pass it, and he's still finding the open receiver. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you talk about a guy making his receivers happy. That's what Anthony Gordon is doing. 3,300 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, Charlton. Basically a touchdown for every 100 yards that he throws in the air.
Yeah, that go-to boy can sling it. Mishaw, they're like, Mishaw who? The Gordon's doing his thing up there in the Palouse. Receiving, you need guys who can catch the ball and get in the end zone like Jerry Rice did in the NFL. Omar Bayless, Arkansas State, we talked about that good old boy, 12 receiving touchdowns. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, not only is he productive in picking up the yards, Charlton, once he catches the ball, but he's also been able to find his way into the end zone.
Yeah, and that's not as easy as people might think it is. You got guys pulling on you and trying to pull you back. And then another solid football player at a lower level of football, but he's still solid, rushing touchdowns. Levante Bellamy, Western Michigan, he has 17 rushing touchdowns, and I'm sure Coach Harbaugh said, how come we didn't recruit that good old boy? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this was a kid who 2 years ago, Charlton, went out to the L.A. Coliseum and gave USC all they could handle, Charlton, in a contest, and now he's leading the nation in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, he's. I remember when they came out to the Coliseum, that guy could play. It's amazing he's not wearing the Michigan Wolverine stripes on his helmet. But it's all fair and love and war. We wish everybody nothing but the best. And I want to also jump to another level of football, Big C's top 10 power rankings of the NFL, and everybody has their own opinion, but I think when you look at some of these teams, and it can change week after week, it's just about how well they play. But I want to start with number 10 and get Big C's thoughts. I would say it would be the L.A. Rams, Big C. Why would they make the Power 10?
Well, I look at the Rams now, Charlton. They're starting to get healthy. They're catching their stride. This was a team that dominated the NFC last year. We know they had some injuries early in this season. But Todd Gurley, they're learning how to utilize him more than just a running back. They utilize him as a receiver out of the backfield, and it's paying dividends.
It's paying dividends. I want to go to another group of players up in Minnesota, and that would be the Minnesota Vikings, who were struggling for a while there, but they found their stride lately. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Minnesota Vikings play outstanding defense. Well, you saw when they started out the season how great that defensive front was for them. Dalvin Cook continues to lead the league in rushing, and that's the nucleus of their offense, brings them at the top 9 of the NFL.
Well, we know they're playing really good football. We don't know how long it's going to last, because sometimes they found a way to self-destruct at times, but they're still there now. I still think, and everybody has their opinion, when you look at magicians that play quarterback, you look at Watson down there for the Texans, and I think this good award for the Houston Texans is amazing. They're coming at number 8, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this team has consistently improved over the years with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. They lost their top defensive player for the season in J.J. Watt. Deshaun Watson has a much improved offensive line. He hasn't been sacked as much over the last 4 games of this season as he has at any point in his career, Charlton. The only Achilles heels that they have, I feel, is Coach Dave O'Brien. I don't know if his mindset is good for Deshaun Watson's skill set.
Wow, that's a good statement. I mean, they got to learn to take care of him and let him play, Big C. He's really a talented player. I want to get Big C's thoughts on who the number 7 team would be. That would be perhaps the Indianapolis Colts, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I look at these ponies, Charlton, and they're playing outstanding football. Everybody thought that when Andrew Luck retired, the Colts would fall off the cliff. No. Jacoby Brissett is an outstanding young quarterback. Bill Belichick drafted him a few years ago out of North Carolina State, Charlton, and he has delivered the goods. When they traded him to Indianapolis a couple of years ago when Luck was hurt, he was successful. He set out last year, and he learned, and now he has command of this Colts offense.
Yeah, he's doing his thing. Number 6 would be the Baltimore Ravens, and there was a time when they were up in the top 2 or 3. They're still strong, but they got to find a way to be more consistent. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the consistency needs to come from their receivers. Lamar Jackson has been getting the ball down the field. His receivers have been inconsistent in catching the ball. We know he's in the top 5 of rushing in the NFL, so that dual threat offensively.
Yeah.
Their defense has been outstanding. We saw how they went out and stifled the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle a week ago, Charlton. This team is getting better each week. And you think about Lamar Jackson. Since becoming a starter in the NFL, he is 11-3.
Yeah, all he needed. Are you sure he shouldn't have been a defensive back? Weren't some of your friends saying this guy doesn't have the skills to be a quarterback in this league? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, your boy Sam Darnold out there at USC and Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. These guys would love Josh Rosen. All of those guys would love to have the record that Lamar Jackson has had, 11-3 as a starter. None of them, Charlton, in their complete 2 seasons that they played, even Josh Allen up in Buffalo, have won 11 games yet in their career.
That's amazing statements, Big C. I want to also look at number 5, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll, I believe he's the oldest coach in the NFL, but he still has the heart of a young man, and this team is playing well, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, I think about their quarterback, and when I was growing up, there was a jazz album by Grover Washington. And there was this hit song on there called Mr. Magic. And that's Russell Wilson, Mr. Magic. I mean, there's nothing that this man can't do. He's not flashy. He's just a consistent winner. There was a lot of pressure from the media when he demanded that he got paid as a quarterback. Russell Wilson has always delivered the goods since he's been the starting quarterback in Seattle, and now he has helped offensively and defensively.
How dare he ask for my money, Big C? He's only gone to 2 Super Bowls. He's 1-1, and if they ran it more, they would have been 2-0. But it's all fair and love award. Number 4, who that say they're gonna beat them Saints, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, here's a team. Everybody was raving about Drew Brees coming back, and you know how much better off they would be. No, it wasn't about Drew Brees, Charlton. This was about the defense of the New Orleans Saints. When we look at what they have done down there defensively, Charlton, they have been a dominant team. Everybody talks about the 49ers defense and the Patriots defense, Charlton. The New Orleans Saints defense is right there on par with those two, and they have a tremendous quarterback in Drew Brees who is back and healthy, and his arm is going to be strong into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I guess he had his finger reinforced like the $6 million man. They made him bigger, stronger, and faster, Big C, the great Drew Brees. Number 3, the Green Bay Packers and discount double check, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Packers, have been an astonishing team. Aaron Rodgers has stayed healthy this year, Charlton. We think about the Packers over the last 2 seasons not being able to get the job done because Aaron has had the injuries. Now he's healthy, and this team has responded. They have a great young core of offensive talent at receiver and running back that is not getting the credit for their productivity, and this defense has been better than advertised.
Yeah, they went into Kansas City, and Kansas City is not known for defense, but to go in front of that crowd and win, that's a big time also by the Packers. Number 2, the 49ers, they're looking for gold, and I think they found some in Santa Clara. Big C, your thoughts?
They have struck gold, Charlton, this year with the 49ers. When you think about what dominance is in football, that's playing great defense. But as the season rolls on and you have that inclement weather, the 49ers have the top rushing team in the NFL. And when you're doing that, it makes it very difficult for a defense to sit up there and go back and play coverage in the secondary. They always have to keep an eye on the line of scrimmage. The 49ers are getting it done on both sides of the ball. Yeah,
this team is really starting their defense. This defense is not like the days of Joe Montana, Steve Young, but their defense is, their offense isn't, but their defense is carrying. Unlike back in the day, their offense has really carried for them. So they've had a switch of positions, Big C, for dominance in that 49er organization. Number 1, you got to keep the king until someone knocks the king off the top, and that would be the King Brady and the New England Patriots. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of people out there who want to be naysayers saying, well, the Pats are not playing football like they had in the past. You think about this, Charlton. If the New England Patriots offense has not scored a point this year, if they had been shut out all year long, you realize the Patriots team right now would be 5-2-1 on the season. It would be 5-2-1. Their defense has scored 48 points and only given up 44 on the year. They would be having a winning schedule without Tom Brady scoring any points. So you think about this offense, they're still trying to learn the nuances of operating without Gronk. They got 2 new offensive linemen this year, Charlton. Tom Brady has done a great job of keeping the ship right until everything gets in sync.
And when people think it's easy, they have Belichick, they have Brady, they're always bringing in some guys that really are just new players being pushed into a position. And if that makes them frustrated, I don't know how you're frustrated when you're 7-0. It doesn't make any sense, but everybody has their own opinion. The NFL trade deadline is already come and gone, Big C. And now there's some teams that did not make any splash moves, but I want to get your thoughts. I'll just throw out some players. And just give me realistically, do you think it's time from the organization standpoint for some players to move off of their starting quarterbacks? I'm going to start up north. Think about what we just said about Tom Brady, how many gold and rings and diamonds he has on his hands. He needs 2 hands to cover all his rings, Big C. But Andy Dalton, Cincinnati Bengals, they got rid of Marvin Lewis because they said, we can't win with Marvin Lewis. Well, since Marvin left, they're 0-8, Big C, and they still get Andy Dalton. Your thoughts?
Well, I think Andy Dalton has seen his last start of the season, Charlton. It's time to move to rookie Ryan Finley to see if you have anything in order with him, Charlton. He was a high-round draft pick this year, and, you're going to see if you need to go into the draft and get another quarterback. The Red Rifles days in Cincinnati are basically done.
Well, they're going to say he needs a better coach. So why they get rid of Lewis? Lewis has been to the playoffs about half the times that Brady has. How much longer will it take for Cincinnati to get a guy to come in there and turn that team around? Just something for people to think about. And then I think 8 or 9 times in the playoffs with the Bengals. Washington Redskins, them good old boys in the nation capitals, they're 1-7. Is it time for the Redskins to start Dwayne Haskins and just let him take his lumps? You can't find a way to get experience by sitting on the bench, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you can't get experience sitting on the bench, and you can't get experience coming in the second half of a game where the team is already down and you know a defense. All they have to do is pin their ears back and come after the young signal caller, Charlton. Dwayne Haskins should start from this point on the rest of the season. As you said, the Redskins are 1-7. You're not making the playoffs. You have no hopes or aspirations to get anything promising out of this season. other than developing your rookie first-round draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. And maybe they spend too much time watching what's going on in the White House, Big C. They got to start looking over their play chart more often. I want to take you down to this beautiful stadium, I think Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta, Georgia. And Atlanta Falcons, I know this is not where Arthur Blank wanted when they put, I don't know, over $1 billion into a brand new stadium. Gave a lot of people in the community opportunity to get some job training and help, build some concessions around that stadium, Big C, and help put the structure up. The Falcons are 1-7. Not too long ago, they were in the Super Bowl, Big C, up 28-3 at one point. And everybody's making an excuse for a guy that was paid $155 million, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's the sad cry that's going on in Atlanta. Everybody is to blame except for Matt Ryan. And, I had somebody telling me the other day, well, look at all his passing yards. One of the things about passing yards in football, there's two types. There are yards that you accumulate when you're in the lead, guy named Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And yards you accumulate when you're behind, guy named Matt Ryan in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He's second in the league in passing going into the last weekend, Charlton. But those are chase yards. You're second in the league in passing, and you have one victory halfway through the season. That means that you're not too productive as a quarterback.
Yeah, now, Debbie, I just want to throw your opinion out there for the universe to hear, because we talk about Dak Prescott down in Dallas, Jerry Jones world, and people keep saying, well, we don't want to pay him. He should take a discount. And he, if he just wastes his time, he's going to get paid eventually. But when we look at guys that don't have the record that Prescott has, I think he has more wins than anyone in the league outside of Tom Brady in his tenure in the NFL. How come if Prescott was 1-7 and had been given $155 million, do you think they'd still be running him out there to play, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, he would have been ridiculed, and he'd been on the trade block. He'd have been part of the trade deadline today in the NFL. What Dallas is going to do, Dallas is not going to sign Dak Prescott. They are going to franchise Dak Prescott at the end of the year. He's going to be in a Kirk Cousins scenario in Dallas because that's the only way that they can save salary cap money to sign other players, Charlton. So they'll franchise him, pay him $25 to $27 million next year and $30 million over the following year. It's guaranteed money. It's just paid incrementally.
Yeah, well, Jerry Jones, he's a billionaire for a reason, Big C. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're 2-5. Jameis Winston, he loves crabs that he don't have to pay for, from what I understand, Big C. But he also loves to turn the football over, as well as getting into trouble off the field. And I'm always an advocate for the underdog, Big C. But is it time for him to go, Big C? Your thoughts?
It is time for Jameis Winston to leave the state of Florida. If you look at where he's been since his last year at Florida State, Charlton, it's been nothing but a troubled career. Here was a guy, the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But when you don't get far away from home, sometimes you bring all that baggage with you. And you think about some of the off-the-field incidents that Winston has been in since being in the NFL. They mirror what happened while he was in college.
Yeah.
And his productivity has just not been there for him to remain in the state of Florida.
Yeah, sometimes you need a change of scenery so you can learn to fly on your own, Big C. Speaking of flying, when you go a mile high, the air is a little bit thinner. And the winds are a little bit thinner too, Big C. The Broncos are 2-6. And they brought in a guy named John Elway to run the organization. He brought in a guy by the name of Joe Flacco, who has a neck problem, like another former Broncos quarterback in Manning. But the difference with these two quarterbacks is one went on to win the Super Bowl in Peyton. And Flacco, I just wonder, he was looking like he was a little bit worn out when he was in Baltimore. And a change of scenery can sometimes pick you up. But right now, he might need another change of scenery, like sitting at the backup side of the bench, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if Joe Flacco will play any more this year in Denver, Charlton. They have a lot of problems in Denver. The coaching staff is a big problem. Nick Fangio doesn't have a clue of what's going on. But when you try to compare Joe Flacco to Peyton Manning, it wasn't just Peyton Manning when he signed with the Denver Broncos and everyone thought that John Elway pulled a coup with that. No,
right.
There were players who wanted to go play with Peyton Manning that made them better.
Yeah.
Khalid Talib wanted to be a defensive back there. Cliff Harris wanted to be a defensive back there. DeMarcus Ware wanted to be a defensive lineman there, Charlton. Denver was able to acquire players that wanted to play with Peyton Manning at the twilight of his career.
Yep.
C.J. Anderson, that went on to help catapult them to 2 Super Bowl opportunities while he was there. All of those players left along with Peyton Manning, Charlton, and Denver's cupboards were left bare. They brought in Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
There wasn't a long line of players that wanted to go to Denver and play with Joe Flacco, Charlton.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Big C. I want to swing it out to the West Coast, and I know they're having a lot of fires down in Southern California, and I hope that people are able to evacuate like they're told. When they say evacuate, and you've got people on the highways that are already crowded, and then the fire jumps the highway, that makes it kind of scary, so I really wish the best for people in L.A., the great people of L.A., Big C. And the L.A. Chargers, you think about Phillip Rivers. He's 3-5. Are the Chargers are 3-5? Is this the last standing quarterback? Think about it. He's the last standing quarterback from the 2004 class, and maybe it's time for him to look elsewhere if you're the Chargers organization, because you have a brand new arena you're going into next year, Big C, down in Inglewood. You can't bring in a losing team and keep the same players to get the crowd interested, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I look at Phillip Rivers. He's the last standing quarterback from that class of 2004. Ben Roethlisberger's on the sideline. Eli Manning's on the sideline. Phillip Rivers still commutes every day from San Diego to Los Angeles.
Too far.
And so I wonder if that is challenging on his career and his ability to concentrate on the game, Charlton. Is he fatigued come game time from all this commuting up and down the freeway every day? And you talked about L.A. with the burning fires.
Yeah.
He has to drive through that every day to get to and from work.
Yeah.
So should the Chargers be looking at their future? Here's a guy that's long in the tooth. He's never gotten back to that AFC Championship game that he once lost to the New England Patriots with a torn ACL in his leg, Charlton. He played on one leg in that game, but the Chargers just don't seem to have the personnel right now to get him back to that point in his career.
And they were knocking on the door last year in the playoffs until they ran into King Brady and the New England Patriots. Chicago Bears, 3-4. Everyone in Chicago, Big C. I got friends in Chicago. They were so excited about the Bears. They kept saying that Mitch Trubisky is going to be the next good quarterback to come out of Chicago, Big C. But at the same time, he looks like he's a little bit deer in the headlights compared to guys like Deshaun Watson and then Patrick Mahomes. And then when people say this is a can't-miss guy, and I'm not knocking anybody, but I know we've covered a lot of quarterbacks, and even when it comes to African-American quarterbacks, that people want to give a very thin rope to, Big C, a very, very thin rope, and say play running back or quarterback or defensive back. They were so excited about Mitch Trubisky. But it's like the city of Chicago seems to be a bit too windy for him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, what happened with Trubisky last year, Charlton, is when Nagy came in, he brought in a lot of different nuances to the offense that division had not seen. You also got to think about your boy Aaron Rodgers didn't play last year. He was hurt.
Yeah.
Your cousin in Minnesota was trying to get, antiquated to that system there in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so he had two of the top quarterbacks in that division, basically, that were non-productive last year. The Bears had a great defense, so he didn't have to do a lot. I mean, a lot of misdirection that they brought into that system, Charlton, and teams were prepared for it. Now they got a year of tape on this kid.
Yeah.
And so he's not fooling anybody. Matt Nagy's system is not working there in that division. Chicago, this is the time that you can still move off of Trubisky and take your losses on this, Charlton, because you're not invested heavily into him.
Yeah.
But I don't see his career getting any better. He seems to be a shell-shocked quarterback right now. He has no confidence, and even the coach said last weekend he had no confidence in him to run another play and take a longer field goal.
Yeah, isn't that something in front of, what do they hold? I think Soldier Field has some 70,000. And then even whether they're at home on the road, you're still telling your team that I don't have confidence in the guy that I put to lead you guys, and I don't think that's a good message. But everybody has it. Miami Dolphins, they're 0-7, but I think they're the best 0-7 team that I saw play, at least on a Monday night. I think the Steelers under Tomlin, I think they're 14-2 Monday Night Football, somewhere in there. But think about this. They can this franchise can be the only team to equal the history in a reverse way, from going 7-0 to 0-7, and then maybe 14-0 to 0-14. I still think the Dolphins will get a win. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the Dolphins, including last year and this year, Charlton, they have lost 10 consecutive games.
Yeah.
So they're en route, Charlton, to equal the record that they set in 1972 when they had the perfect season of 17-0.
Yeah.
They actually can equal that again this year, Charlton. With this year going through, Charlton, they can actually go undefeated over the season, so they would be 0-20 over their last 20 games if they don't win a game this season.
Basically, it's not fair when you go back to the past season and include that record. That doesn't make any sense. If that's the case,
all right, we'll just make it 0-16 then. They'll be the
okay, yeah.
first team in NFL history to have two perfect seasons, a 14-0 season and an 0-16 season.
Yeah, it's always nice to be kind. It's the holidays coming, Big C. On this beautiful day, October 29th, 1852, in American history, the edition of Frederick Douglass's newspaper called the North Star, think about this, it reports the activities of the first African-American woman publisher. Her name was Mary Ann Shadd, and she's part of that Underground Railroad. They went to Canada to find some freedom and people that would give them opportunity. First woman to do that, right? Now think about this. Later, that same woman, she came back to the United States after the Civil War, came to Howard University's law school, became the first woman student practicing law in Washington, D.C. Mary Ann Shadd is thought to be the first African-American woman lawyer in this great country, Big C, from slavery to going to get away to Canada, and now you're the first and publisher. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this was the reason why slave owners fought so valiantly to keep slaves from being able to read, Charlton, because they knew that they possessed intelligence, and all they needed was an opportunity. And that's what many runaway slaves received, Charlton, was an opportunity to go out and expand their horizons. And many generations after that, they were able to reap the benefits of it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, too. So I just wish everybody well. I love when people get the opportunities. I want to just look at tonight's NBA schedule. It's very light, Big C, kind of like you want a light salad when you have that, barbecue, deep-fried ribs. You want a little light salad with it to balance things out. NBA is doing the same tonight. We have the Hawks. They're playing at the Heat. We have the Mavericks. They're at the Nuggets, and the Grizzlies are at the Lakers. A late, kind of a late game for the Lakers, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. But if you're in L.A. with all the fires and Staples Center is busy, it seems, every night. Either the Clippers or the Lakers are in town. And have you ever heard of the NBA canceling games? I know football has moved them to different locations. The Raiders one time had to play down south when they had the Napa fires. But you think that would they ever do that? Would they postpone or move this team to Vegas for a weekend or two? Big, your thoughts?
No, they're not going to move the game out of the city, Charlton, because the NBA is too structured the way that it is. And if you're moving the teams, then you're all of a sudden thinking that the game is bigger than the people that are around in those surrounding areas, Charlton, that the game is not more important. But NBA has canceled games in the past. If you go back to the World Series between the Giants and the Oakland A's, the NBA canceled games in the Bay Area at that time, Charlton, because of the structural problems in L.A., but that was a devastation situation down there. But as you look at, even after the first week of the NBA season, Charlton, there's only 4 teams that are left undefeated.
Yeah.
So when you think about the NBA being as dominant as what it is, only the 76ers, Spurs, Timberwolves, and the Nuggets are undefeated. But you still got teams, Charlton, that's looking for victories. The Kings and the Pelicans that are still searching for that first victory of the season.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And I wish everybody the best. Please stay safe as you're going to see games. A lot of kids are being canceled for school also because school districts are closing down as well. We hope everybody can get that under control. Big C, I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on my 2 favorite apps called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I just want to close out in the final. You know how when you're on thin ice, you don't want the ice to melt, so you get off of it fast, Big C. After 1 month of the season NHL award watchers, the leaders for the Hart, Norris, and Venzia trophies, and more. I want to look at Art Ross Trophy. Your point leaders, David Pasternak of Boston, Connor McDavid of Edmonton, Nathan McKinnon of Colorado. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the NHL is off to a roaring start. When you're looking at early consideration for the final MVP awards in the league, Charlton, this is a great jump in some outstanding players.
There's something called the Rocket Richard Trophy. Leading goal scorer David Pastrnak, Boston. This Leon Draisaitl from Edmonton, Mark Stone, Las Vegas. And then the Hart Trophy MVP, Connor McDavid, Edmonton, Jack Eichel for Buffalo, and David Pastrnak, Boston. Big C, your thoughts?
Rocket Richard, one of the greatest players of the Montreal Canadiens, Charlton, and now this award is named after him. It's just an outstanding award to be considered for at this point of the season.
The Norris Trophy, top defenseman, John Carlson, Washington, Roman Jose of Nashville, Chris Letang of Pittsburgh, and Selke Trophy is the best defensive forward. You have Patrice Bergeron, you have of Boston, Sean Couturier of Philadelphia, and then Mark Stone of Las Vegas. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, in all professional sports, we always talk about the guys who are putting the points on the scoreboard. NHL recognized players for being great defensemen, for stopping those players, Jonathan, from putting points on the scoreboard, and this is a great honor.
Two more categories for my good old boys that love Canada and the United States. The Vezina Trophy top three. You have Pekka Ryan, Nashville, Marc-Andre Fleury, Las Vegas, and Tuukka Rask, Boston. Calder Trophy top rookie, Victor Olofsson, Buffalo, Quinn Hughes, Vancouver, and Cale Makar of Colorado. Big C, them good old boys, do you think they like their scotch on ice? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they probably drink it neat, Charlton, but when you think about those goal scorers, the guys behind the mask, Charlton, as we see them flopping all over the night, all over the ice and taking those hard hit pucks towards them, Charlton, they're the difference between victory and defeat for their teams.
Yeah, well, you know, it's all fair in love and war. I really love the fact that we have such a potpourri of sports going on. We have stuff going on in Washington. I just ask people to read, keep your head up, don't put your head in the sand and just worry about who won a game. We're more intelligent than that. But everybody has their own flavor of Kool-Aid, and we have the World Series. Will it be a Game 7? We'll find out, but I would hope the CBC 7, Big C, I would hope for that. NBA basketball is starting off strong. Even Golden State got to win. Some good old boys down in Texas last night reunited again. But it's all great. I mean, I love this time of year. College football, who's going to get into the Final Four? We'll find out. It is always fun and love and war. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this Sports Universe?
Well, Charlton, everybody's down in Houston tonight for hopefully a last gasp at baseball for the regular season as Game 6 of the World Series is underway. And Houston is hoping to close it out tonight. Washington is happy that POTUS is not talking about them. It gives them a chance on the road.
Yeah, it's amazing that POTUS shows up, and they got swept in their hometown, and POTUS was out, I guess, in town the whole time. Sometimes the aura is not the same, but you can always find good aura every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you're any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.